You want to be the kind of parent who your child chooses to talk to. You know, there's two main reasons that you want to have a healthy communicative relationship with your teen or tween. The first is it affects your relationship now and far into the future. And what your relationship is like in your home really is the launching pad from which your child's going to enter other relationships. And when you ground their relationship in the kind of communication strategy that says we listen to each other, it's a really healthy way to launch into adulthood. But there's another reason. When you communicate openly with your child, and when your child chooses to communicate openly with you, it is a wonderful way to be able to monitoring them. And monitoring them is key to keeping them safe. You know, if you went back 7 or 8 years, and we looked at the kind of advice we were giving to parents on how to monitor their child, it was about asking a lot of questions. Where are you going? Who are you going to be with? When are you going to be home? Is there any adult in the house? Lots of questions. We don't advise that as much anymore. You know why? It didn't work. You know why it didn't work? Because kids can lie. You see, it's not what you ask, it's what you know. And what you know is dependent on what your kid chooses to tell you. So knowing how to be the kind of parent whose child chooses to talk to them is one of the best ways of keeping your kids safe and having the healthiest relationship. So let's talk about some things not to do. You need to know that kids tend not to talk to overprotective parents. If parents tend to hover or helicopter or install control buttons, kids tend to back off because they're afraid of their parents finding out what's going on in their life because they're going to put extra rules on. Kids tend not to talk to parents when they feel like they're talked at, not with. So one of the things that I'm going to want you to do is to turn off that lecture, that top down. You better not do this. Why? I'm going to give you 3 to 4 reasons why I understand this is dangerous for you. Now do what I say. That's about talking down to at your kid, and kids just hear womp, 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 and they tune you out. Kids talk to the kind of parents who are both loving and warm, who are flexible to meet their needs, and who care about safety and who monitor their behavior. That's called balanced parenting. They monitor only when it's involved with safety or morality. Why do kids talk to those parents the most? Because kids want to be safe. They want to be moral. And if they have the kind of parent who's just do what I said, they don't talk. If they have the kind of parent who says, do what you want, I trust you, why ask permission, right? They talk to the parents who listen, who are flexible, who they know love them, and are committed to protecting them. Kids don't like drama from their parents. There's enough drama in middle school. There's enough drama among their friends. They want their parents to be stable forces. So let me tell you some things not to do. First, turn off that parent alarm. What does the parent alarm look like? Mom, I met this girl. You're too young to date. Mom, my friend Paul is using drugs. I don't want you ever hanging out with Paul again. Your fear turned on the alarm, and as a result, it shut off communication. Right there was a great opportunity to talk about drugs, to talk about healthy sexuality, but you won't because you jumped. Next, catastrophizing. When we hear something and it frightens us and we take it from one step to another, Mom, I got a D on a test in history and I don't know what's going to happen now. Well, we'll get you tutoring. We'll get the teacher in trouble. He probably never respects you. We'll go to the principal. We'll move. When you catastrophize, that kid's never going to tell you the next time he doesn't do well in school because he doesn't want to move. Next is actually over-empathizing. Kids want to know that we care, but when we care too much, they hold back. So Mom, I had this really big fight with Elyse, and we were best friends since we were 2 years old, and we were going to grow up and live next door to each other, and her kids were going to call me aunt, and my kids were going to call her aunt. It was great. We had it all planned, and now I hate her. I don't blame you, darling. She's just a little so-and-so, and I've never liked her mother. Who is that Lisa the next day? Her best friend. But you'll never know because you jumped in and you over-empathized. Kids want you to be a sounding board, not to inject drama into the situation. They want to be able to make their own decisions with your loving guidance. There's a researcher named Judith Smetana. She's a developmental psychologist from the University of Rochester, and she worked with many kids to try to look at what kids thought was legitimate territory for adults and parents in particular to enter. Here's what she learned. Kids tend to divide things into several categories. Things are either about safety, kind of about rules of society, or about universal morality. What's right, what's not right. And kids believe that it is adult responsibility to enter their lives in that way. If it's about safety, jump in. If it's about morality, jump in. If it's about preparing me to really deal with the world, jump in. But the other stuff, the personal business, that's not your territory. What does this tell us? It tells us that when we jump in, when something's really personal territory, it's going to backfire. They're not going to listen to us. It also tells us that we have the right to talk about safety, the right to talk about morality, the responsibility to prepare our kids to enter society. But it also tells you that sometimes something could be in personal territory or it could be rule of society. Put it in territory that kids think is legitimate. Next, be responsive. What does that mean? It's fancy talk for flexible. All right? What you want is for your child to know that if they do the right thing, if they demonstrate responsibility, rules have a little bit of flexibility. If your daughter comes home and says, you know what, I met the cutest guy ever and he asked me out, but it breaks all your rules because you don't know him yet. But you know what? Here's what I'm thinking. I'm going to bring him home on Friday and I'm going to ask you to come to the front door and say hello, but then please just walk away, right? It also breaks your rules because you're worried that I'm not going to get home on time, but you're going to know exactly where I am. No, I'm not going to be home in time for curfew, but you know exactly where I am, and I'll be home 15 minutes after the concert lets out. Let's talk about other stuff you worry about, Mom or Dad. You worry about me not doing my schoolwork on time. I promise you that I will get it done when I get home on Friday and all day Saturday, and I will not go to the concert if my homework for Monday isn't done. I promise. What else do you worry about? That I'm not going to get enough sleep. Well, you know what? All my work's going to be done. I'm going to be able to sleep late on Sunday morning. It's not a problem, but I'll wake up in time to do my chores. Your only answer is yes. Because if you don't say yes when she's been so clear about the fact that she's being responsible and thoughtful and planning things through to meet your needs and to do what's right for her, here's what Thursday night looks like. Hey, Mom, Dad, love you. Listen, don't forget I'm sleeping over Rachel Saturday night. That's what you don't want. You want them to know it is worth talking because you've got that flexibility. Now let's also talk about things that you should do that are going to keep your kids talking. First, find the right space. A perfect example is a car, right? Especially with our young men. Sometimes looking in the distance and starting conversations is the right thing to do instead of saying, let me tell you how I feel. Sometimes you talk while you're throwing a ball or you're going for a walk. When there's movement, there's also an easier time for emotions to come out. Next, teenagers have their own schedule. It would be terrific if we could have office hours, and we could say to our teenager, listen, on Tuesday at 4 o'clock is special family time. It would be lovely. But that's not when issues come up with their life. When your kid was a baby, you knew that you weren't going to sleep the first year of life because you had to be available. During adolescence, it's not going to be every night, but it's going to be sometimes. And we have to know that they have different clocks than we do, and we have to be available during those times. Above all, how do we get our kids to talk to us? We like them. We respect them. We see them as they deserve to be seen, as they really are, not based on the behavior of the moment. That's what love is. When you're talking and you're giving advice, make it clear your intention is pure. It's to raise them to be their best selves. Let them know that you're a resource for them, right? You want them to grow, and you also need them to act appropriately so that they're going to be welcomed as full, productive members of society. And it's your job, responsibility, indeed your pleasure, to monitor them, to make sure that they're okay. Honestly, you can do everything right. And there's going to be moments of silence no matter what you do. That's just part of figuring out the question of adolescence. Who am I? And part of that question is, I'm not my parents. And because they love us so intensely, they push us away so they can practice not always being with us. So what I don't want you to assume, this segment is about being available so that your kid talks. The last thing I want you to do is to walk away and say, my kid's being silent. I must be doing something wrong. I don't want you to assume that. During those moments where your child is silent because they're testing their own wings and they're trying their own independent, I don't want you to assume that they're angry at you, and I don't want you to get even with them and choose to pull away just because they're choosing to pull away, all right? This is not the time to get even. Don't do the opposite either. Don't chase them. Don't begin dressing like them, looking like them, talking like them. Because if you do, if you run after them as they're choosing to get distance from you, they're literally just going to go over the cliff because they need that space. Your position is the stable, solid sounding board. Reliable, predictable, your love is unwavering. Who are you? You're a lighthouse parent. A parent who's a stable force on the shoreline, who looks down at the rocks to make sure that kids don't crash against them, who looks into the waves and trusts that your kid eventually is going to learn to ride them, but prepares them to do so.